Good evening, namaskar, and salam, everyone. My name is Vidushi, and I welcome you all to the third panel discussion hosted by Skills Reform. शुरू करने से पहले I request our audience to pour in their questions क्योंकि कोई भी question stupid नहीं होता और discussion को और effective करता है सबकी learning के लिए. तो आज हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं इंडस्ट्री 5.0 द फ्यूचर पाथ के बारे में. एंड मैकेंजी की एक रिपोर्ट जो बहुत फेमस है आजकल, वो कहती है कि 400 मिलियन वर्कर्स कैन बी डिस्प्लेस्ड बाय ऑटोमेशन इन बाय 2030. बट इससे कहीं ज्यादा जो बात नहीं बोली जाती है वो ये है कि उतनी ही लेबर डिमांड भी क्रिएट होगी. एंड स्किल्स रिफॉर्म एक ऐसी कंपनी है दैट विल हेल्प यू टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ दिस लेबर डिमांड with the knowledge and training that we require to survive in the future. Be it transferable skills, growth mindset, transition skills जैसे adaptability and agility, यही skills है जो automate नहीं हो सकते हैं. तो आज हम इन्हीं skills को इंडस्ट्री के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखेंगे. We will talk about what is Industry 5.0, what does it mean for the working population, and क्या skills हमें चाहिए to be relevant in this fifth industrial revolution. And to help us transition ourselves from the fourth to the fifth industrial revolution, today we have our esteemed panelists joining us from diverse experiences and diverse parts of the world. Anand Prakash ji is currently the CEO of Farm of Full Potential. He brings with him over 34 years of experience in training in quality management, manufacturing, project management, और जो कि मेरा favorite topic है वो है design thinking और agile methodology. Agility के एक और expert प्रवीण गोयल sir is also a skilled agile program coach who has conducted projects with Fortune 100 companies in USA on agile mindset, collaboration, and cross-functional leadership. So he's joining us from USA at 6:30 in the morning. And then we have our Skills Reform Director, Chetna Sabarwal, to connect all the wonderful and a little complex insights from our experts for our diverse audience of students and working professionals. With over 25 years of experience in education, psychology, and career guidance, she is now a social entrepreneur. So, welcome you all. Thank you for joining us in your time here. So, I'll start with the first question with Anand sir. आपका क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है on today's topic specific to manufacturing and design thinking and जितना आपका experience है इस industry में?
Thanks, Vidushi. It's pleasure to be here on this platform and talking about an absolutely current, I would say, or even before current. It's like before release. We are discussing a topic which some of us might be thinking it is ahead of the time. But I would say that skills reform have taken a very good initiative of talking about it at a right time, at an appropriate time. Because when we talk of skills, we have to think about what we will need maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Then only that foundation can be built at the school level or at the college level or at the early professional career of the professionals. So as you said, that what is my perspective? So I would like to share my views. I had an experience, I had an opportunity to work in the area which is manufacturing, IT industry, and education and training. So I will try to share my experience in these three areas. But before I share my perspective, let me just, for the benefit of the audience and the participants, what exactly is the Industry 5.0 and why we are talking about it. I'm sure we all have heard about Industry 4.0, and that is what we have been talking for now almost a decade. And some developed countries have adopted to a very large extent. And even India, if I see today, there is a 20 to 30% at a very broad level deployment and acceptance of Industry 4.0. But why we are talking 5.0 and how it is different for Industry 4.0, if I have to summarize very quickly, the Industry 4.0 still builds on Industry 3.0, where we are talking about interconnected machines. through intelligence, through data connectivity, and primarily through internet. So we call as cyber physical systems, where machine to machine communication happens, and we are able to achieve the highest order of efficiency. So still in the industry 4.0, the focus is on efficiency and productivity. Now, when we move on to 5.0, there is a very, very big difference. And if I say again, in a very simple term, up to 4.0, we are still talking of mass production. But when we are moving to 5.0, we are talking of mass personalization. And that's a big difference. So when we say 5.0, we are actually saying that we are moving back to the pre-industry stage where we used to talk about craft and not the mass production. When we say craft, craft has a lot of human aspect. Craft has a lot of design aspect. So 5.0 actually becomes a craft with mass production. That means how the humans can put the highest level of available technology and still create a product which is personalized, which is the highest level of human touch. And that is where it brings the dimension what Vidushi said, that people only sometimes look at one side of the report, which says that if robots will come, if technology will come, then so many jobs will get displaced or so many jobs will go away. That's absolutely untruth. Yes, jobs will get transformed. And for transformed job, we will require transformed skills. So now coming back to the dimension of human touch and coming back to the another feature of Industry 5.0 is collaboration of robots and humans. So it's like on the same shop floor, you have a next person sitting is a robot, or you have a work which is being done by you along with an assistant, which is robot. So it is a clear-cut collaboration of automated or autonomous devices, autonomous machines, along with the humans. So one thing is very clear that it is not going to reduce the number of jobs, it is only going to increase the job. And since this is a very, very important point with everybody from layman to the expert, and there are always juries out on this discussion of if the technology comes, if the robots come, what will happen to the human being. I only want to give one example from my experience that in 1985, when in India, the computerization started happening, people thought that if computers will come, then jobs will go away. I know kind of agitations happened, union leaders opposed technology adoption. But today, from 2000 onwards, almost all jobs are in IT industry. Now, had we not adopted the computers in 1985 to 90, all the jobs which in the last 20 years have come in India would not have probably come. So I think this fear and apprehension of technology, we have to somehow put it in the backyard and see what we can actually drive out of it. Now, if I have time, let me continue. So, as I said in the beginning, that there are three areas where I would like to share my experience. One is manufacturing. Now, manufacturing, see, adoption of robots in manufacturing industry actually goes back to even 40 years or 50 years. But the level of robots which were being used at the time were very simple automated machines, and which were typically being used to do those jobs which people don't want to do, like dirty or something which is very difficult to do or people don't like to do, so or dull kind of activities, or because of safety reasons those things cannot be done. So those are the tasks being given to the robots. But now the robots can actually become your real assistant, and we know even in our day-to-day life, we use Siri and Google and all those, and they are our technical assistants. So in the manufacturing area, we know, I'm talking about when I was in manufacturing somewhere in 90s. Now, when we used to set up the machines, the amount of time it used to take to set up the machines, the amount of data analysis we used to do offline, it used to take humongous effort and humongous time. Sometimes we collect data in one shift, And by the time the data analysis is done, the results are available after 24 hours, and then only we can take some decision. Now, with the kind of technologies available in Industry 4.0, when they will be deployed by the humans on the shop floor, they will be able to take the decisions almost instantly. Now, what will it help is that it will take away all the waste of effort, and it will help me the possible efficiency and the possible level of quality which I would like to achieve. So again, it is going to add to the value which will be added by the human being on the shop floor, and the entire economic calculation of manufacturing will get improved. So what will happen when the economic calculation will get improved? The cost will reduce, and the price at which the product will be available to the consumer will be reduced. So it's a win-win situation.
Yes,
The
sir.
second,
That is true.
yeah, the second example I would like to talk about the IT industry. Now, in IT industry, I say that we have been actually working in collaboration with robots. The definition of robots may I will just give you the definition, but right from the beginning, we have been working along with the robots. How? For example, when I started my career somewhere in '83, in those days, we used to write assembly language program. Now, assembly language programming was very difficult to write. So what happened over the period, the higher level languages have got developed. But to convert higher level languages into the coding level actionables, we need compilers. Now, what is compiler? Compiler is nothing but a software. That means it is a robot. It's a self-working robot. So when I put my high-level language into a compiler, it makes my job easy. And that is how so many technologies have developed. Secondly, for testing a software, we used to put hell lot of effort when we used to do manual testing. Now with the automated testing, we are able to do the testing better, faster, at a lesser cost. So in the IT industry, I see we may not have called them robots, but I think we have been working with the technology side by side.
And if I take very long also.
Yeah. And if I take the third area, which is education and training, I think we know there are a lot of routine tasks which we have to do in the education and training area. There are a lot of tasks which are very boring, like every time evaluating somebody's exam papers. And if things can be automated, and if some sort of a assistant is available to me, I'm sure it is going to be a co-working, which will be a collaborative working of the robot and the individuals, which is the fundamental theme of Industry 5.0. This is what I would like to do.
Thank you, sir. I hope our audience members, especially the students and the working professionals in the manufacturing and IT industry, were taking notes, because Anand sir ने बहुत सारे lessons भी दे दी है within his answer of perspective. So thank you, sir. And to, I think, take out some very important points that Anand sir was talking about, from mass production to mass personalization. That is what the Industry 4.0 to Industry 5.0 ka transition looks like. And going from these industries that sir talked about to more general perspective, Praveen sir, what do you think Industry 5.0 will look like, especially when we talk about future trends? जैसे आनंद सर ने बोला कि हमारे साथ रोबोट्स बैठे होंगे, हम उनके साथ कोलैबोरेटिव तरीके से काम करेंगे. So what do you think it will look like?
Sure. First of all, I just want to thank you, Skill Reform, to giving me the opportunity to be part of this wonderful panel discussion. So just to extend what Anand sir already described in detail, let me start with one very recent experience of Industry 5.0. So like just 10 days back, I was, during my Christmas break, I went to Virginia, and I was in a car ride with my brother-in-law, and who owns a Tesla Model X. So we stopped at one grocery parking, and one reminder just flashed on the phone and the car dashboard. And that reminder says, the new software is available to download. And you won't believe it took less than 5 minutes to download the whole new operating system for the car in a 5G network. And the whole car operating system got updated with so many new features. So the question arises, where we are now. So just look around what's happening. a digital company like Tesla to bring a software-based vehicle to the market faster than all the might, money, and knowledge accumulated by all the car makers over the last 50 years. And also look at Apple. Apple just introduced the first watch in 2015, and Apple is now the world's largest watchmaker, just in a matter of like 4 or 5 years. So the bottom line is the quest for the next big thing has always been the driving force for global development. And the industrial sector is always at the forefront of such advancement and technologies because they have access to all the money and they have access to all the advanced technology to implement and experiment all these new ideas. So in my opinion, at the core of the Industry 5.0 are some new business scenarios which are fueled by all these latest technology advancements. And these new business scenarios are focused on delivering individually tailored customer experience, as Anandji mentioned, the craft. That's what, it boils down to, that, we have to deliver some individually tailored customer experience. And this trend will enable experience activated product. Those can comprehend and respond to the end user requirement and can also optimize their performance and deliver maximum efficiency and throughout the life cycle of the product. They are not like a dumb product, they are thinking and evolving kind of a product. And some of the themes, for 5.0, which I can see is, there will be distributed robotic production lines, and there will be very high focus on hyper customization, and we'll have a very responsive and distributed supply chains. And as I mentioned, we'll have experience activated products and very high emphasis on customer experience. And the one thing which Anandji also mentioned, there will be a massive return of manpower to the factories as compared to Industry 4.0. And to cater to all these future trends, companies will have to drastically change the way they are operating today. An explosion of data will create many new employment opportunity, especially associated with the data monitoring and data controls. And pretty much all the job functions will evolve big time, including HR, sales, marketing, and including jobs on the IT floor and shop floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen sir. I think you rightly covered everything. In every domain that we're talking about, from sales, marketing to manufacturing to supply chain operations, everywhere there will be, talk about creating highly customized personal experiences for people. And talking about personal experiences, I think this is where I would like to bring Chetna ma'am in. There's a report where I think there was this one line that I really liked, where it said, psychology trumps technology. And I think that is still happening. Like, we've been in a pandemic, and even after, being virtually connected and virtually working professionally, personally, everything is just connected virtually with so many tools and so many platforms, but still we are craving human connection. So what do you think the Industry 5.0 will bring in terms of a merger of machine and human cognition?
Okay, thank you, Vidushi, for your question. And I welcome on behalf of Skills Reform once again to every one of you who are here. And thank you, Praveen and Anandji, for joining us here. I'll just start with a beautiful quote, which is by some futuristic Mr. Alvin Toffler, which says the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that sums up all that when we are here to discuss about Industry 5.0. So Industry 4.0 and 5.0, there is some kind of a controversial thing going on, that whether it's 4 or 5 or something. But I think what has happened during this pandemic is we are already into Industry 5.0. If you will see the spaces which we are working, the places which we are working, the gadgets with which we are working. So Industry 4.0 is about the digitalization. It's about the automation which happened during the years. And in the past also, when we speak about the other previous industrial revolution, so there was I think in somewhere 3.5. That is what happened. So it was not a direct jump from 3 to 4, but it was 3 to 3.5, where globalization jumped into because the economies were going down for the countries, and same thing has happened. So the idea of this particular panel discussion is this, and when you talk about psychology, so I would bring it here. Industry 4.0 was mass customization. Okay. That's what. So everything, so standardize everything. So you want to produce in manufacturing, you want to go in supply chain management, you want to create a brand. So it will be mass customization for everybody. And that is what we do. So you will see people, chains of market, this branding, clothing going on, people wearing same kind of clothes everywhere. In different this thing, but then that is what happened. It was mass customization because the production became stronger. And as Anandji said, that it was basically removal of everything which is dull, dreary, and boring. Okay, that's what happened with industrialization 4.0. Now, what is going to happen with 5.0, or I would say rather, which is happening because of 4.0, is mass personalization. Sounds like an oxymoron completely, but then that is the truth. So if I want a car for myself, if I want my specs today, I want to order. So there is a cobot, which is collaborative robot. So what is happening here is there will be a customized questions for you that, okay, what kind of specs you would like. And this I'm saying for the people who don't know even Industry 5.0, or they don't have any inkling about Industry 5.0 or what is Industrial Revolution per se. So what happens here is that if I'm choosing the specs, I'll come back to my example. So when I am choosing, so I just want to see how do I look virtually, okay? And that's the best part of it, that you're customizing so I'm not going to a store to get that thing done. And then it gives you, and the future would be that if I am looking and I'm checking my specs there, so there would be somebody, maybe a cobot sitting beside, and he'll tell you, okay, you're not looking nice here. That's the beauty of, so human touch psychology will come here. That will be the play which will happen. तो और जब लोगों को डर लगता है इस चीज से कि इंडस्ट्री 5.0 के आने से शायद जॉब्स कम हो जाएंगी, नो, देयर विल बी एम्पल जॉब्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी आर हियर ऑल ऑफ अस डिस्कसिंग अबाउट दिस इंडस्ट्रियल 5.0, because personalization will happen. So anybody, like Anandji spoke about the craftsmanship. So in earlier times, if you will see, so patronizing was this only, कि आप अगर एक राजा हैं तो आपको अपना कुछ अलग चीज बनवानी है तो आप उससे आप क्राफ्टमैन से काम करवाते हैं. अब क्या होगा कि और डिजिटलाइजेशन की वजह से आपके पास, अगर मान लीजिए मेरी चॉइस है एंटीक्स की, सो व्हाट आई विल डू इज द डेटा विल डू फॉर मी इज दैट ही विल पिक अप द चॉइस ऑफ माइन, and that is what personalization will happen. And I will talk more about it. What you said was how psychology will pour in and what will. So I am sure that my job is safe with 5.0. So over to you, Vidushi, for the next. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think jobs of educators, nurses, all of these jobs are very, very safe. So lucky that way. And this reminds me of certain examples. I know Lenskart and Amazon have actually started doing these things where you can actually try your specs and you can try the frame, you can try the size, you can check your eyesight level, and now you can actually do it with dresses also. So those are very good examples. But at the same time, it makes me wonder that when every company within each of these industries will, deep dive into mass personalization, then what will be the edge? What will they do differently? Or how will they adapt and innovate and be successful at the same time? So I'll start with Praveen, sir. How do you think that companies will thrive in this age when it comes to structure, processes, and keeping in mind that their culture has to be very, very intact? Like you spoke about Apple. So I know Apple is very strong with its culture, and they make sure that it is intact with every product and service that they provide. So over to you, Praveen, sir.
Yeah, sure. I would like to just start with an example again. So as Chetna mentioned about the specs, so recently, actually, one of my friend was in a process of buying a house, and we went to, he just took me because I have experience, I already bought a house. So he just wanted someone to come along. So I went, and you won't believe, in the office, real estate office, they gave us a complete virtual reality tour of each and every detail of the house. You can sit in the sofa, you can sit in the dining table, and experience each and every small detail. You can open drawers, and you can come, stairs up and down, everything. So things are evolving really, really fast. So coming back to our questions, so just think, welcome to a digital world, a hyper interconnected real time world in which pretty much every industry is kind of a dependent on technology. And to remain competitive, enterprise needs to digitally transform their operations, their solutions, and of course their customer experience. As you can see, we are in the middle of technology revolution that create existential crisis for some of the world's largest and most valuable companies in pretty much all the sectors. And it seems like there is a race going on to transform their businesses to the new digital age businesses as fast as possible. And what I can see from here, like majority of our smart leaders, especially company leaders, they already realize one thing, that old system and old structure and the culture which was built over the past century, that cannot support the new demands. So solution is not to like just trash what we have and start over, but there is a need to introduce a new operating model in the companies. And the core goal, as we discussed, is to achieve a state of business agility, which means that how companies can deliver innovative business solutions faster than the competition. So that's the holy grail. And in order to achieve that, we need a second operating system that's add back agility and speed to these large enterprises. And companies need to identify how they are delivering value to the customer, and then organize themselves around that value instead of like in traditional silos, functional silos. So currently, as you can see, majority of the company, we have finance, we have, HR, we have, compliance and security. All they are become so big, and they are all divided into functional silos. And those functional silos basically killing the speed of delivery. So organizing around value streams offers substantial benefits like faster learning cycles, shorter time to market, higher quality, higher productivity, and of course, leaner budgeting mechanism. Currently, some of the big companies, it takes like 6 months to 9 months just to create a budget for the next year. So those things will not survive. And the good thing is about 80% of the Fortune 200 companies has already started their digital transformation journey in this direction. And in this new era, the main companies' policies and procedures will be focused towards removing impediments from the way of lean agile teams, who are focusing on delivering value to the customer. And all these new trends will be led by a very new breed of lean agile leaders who will drive and sustain these organizational changes by empowering the individual and by empowering the teams to reach their highest potential. And that's actually what I've been doing. We've been training a lot of companies and a lot of leaders to those kind of a mindset. So Vidushi, back to you.
Thank you, sir. I think we would love to hear more about your experiences during the training, especially when it comes to the challenges that the companies are facing to, digitally transform themselves. And I think one point that I really liked, which you talked about, is how even now companies are still working in silos. And there are a lot of processes which are still slow. Like you mentioned about the budget, that it takes months for companies to even create their budget. So coming to India, and we know how certain processes in certain companies are still struggling to, transform themselves. When India still hasn't reached Industry 3.0 yet, how do you think we as individuals, as societies, as companies will cope up with this new collaborative approach? Anand sir, over to you.
Thanks, Vidushi. I think we had an excellent perspective coming from our friend Praveen and Chetna. Specific to this question which you have raised, This is a very, very common comment which comes even in our professional circle when we say, oh, so we are talking about 5.0, but have we implemented 4.0 or have we implemented even 3.0? And people will talk about what numbers they have with them. But popularly, I have heard a large number of people saying that maybe 80% of the organizations are still at 3.0 or even below that. Now, so that's a valid question. But the way I look at it is, again, just for the refreshing everybody's understanding that we have something called technology adoption cycle. Whatever new thing we adopt, whatever new technology we adopt, or any change we adopt, so we know very clearly that there are certain percentage which is innovators, then we have early adopters, then we have early majority, then we will have late majority, and there will be some people who are called laggards. They will remain where they are. So typically you have 2% people in the innovator category, 15% in the early adopters, 35 each in early majority and late majority, and some 13-14% will remain as a laggard. So this to me answers your question that it is not that if you are saying industry 5.0, then one night we'll switch off 4.0 and we'll switch on 5.0. Even now when we have 4.0 being adopted, there are 3.0, there are 2.0, there are even 1.0. So it is not that they are exclusive. They are addressing certain needs of the society. So at any given time, you will have certain corporations, certain industries, certain businesses might be still using the methods and processes and technology of 3.0, and some will move to 4.0, and some will move to 5.0. And this gradual shift will happen. But as we move maybe 2 decades from now, you will find the majority will be onto the 5.0. So the issue here should not be that what percentage is right now at 4.0 or 3.0. I think as the title of the discussion says, the future path. So if we are able to see even within the clouds that the future path is going to be towards 5.0, then it is the right time to equip ourselves to transform our attitudes, to transform our skills, transform our knowledge. And as Praveen ji said, that transform our ways of working, transform our processes, transforms our policies, transform our people's attitude. I think that is what is the need rather than worrying about what percentage is at 2.0 or what percentage is at 3.0. This is my way to looking at your concern. Thank you, Vidushi. Over to you.
Thank you, Anand sir. I think discussing coming from industry practices and digital transformation to how you have concluded your answer with the fact that it is about how adaptive we are. So coming to our skills reform director, I know that the company has taken up a very difficult challenge when it advocates for human touch and soft skills, which we all know that is important, but we don't agree to train ourselves in because it is something which is very difficult to train ourselves on. So in your opinion, like Anand sir ne bola, early adopter, how early can we start with this process and how will education 5.0 emerge in collaboration with industry 5.0?
Wonderful question. Thank you. I appreciate that. So when you talk about, when we are saying industrial 5.0, so we can't keep education 5.0 separate and industrial 5.0 separate, because from the education, the early adopters will come and they will be the one who will be leading the industry 5.0. That is the first fact. Now, when we talk about education 5.0, it would be all about value creation. It will be all about creativity. It will also be about cognitive flexibility. I would like to explain here the cognitive flexibility, which will relate more to the agile coach here, Mr. Praveen. So what happens here is that are we training our learners or the youth for the flexibility of their cognitive function? Now, why they have to do that? If I'm working with a cobot, there is a collaborative robot sitting beside me, so what is the function and role of that cobot, and what as a human being I am going to do? Okay, let's deliberate on that part. So what will happen there is the cobot is basically, as all of us know, it's all about the algorithm, it's all about the data, big data. So how do we manage the data is something which is going to be. So what cobot brings here is the speed, accuracy, and precision. Okay, I maybe as a human being may not be that function that with that speed or accuracy, but that cobot can do it. But when it comes to creative thinking, when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to critical thinking, that is where the education 5.0 would be playing the role. So value creation would happen only when you talk about that. If suppose how our company is going to survive. So how did Amazon come into the play? I mean, over the years, so 1990 somewhere. So it won't happen in a jiffy, or it won't happen in like I rub on the genie and if something happens. ऐसा नहीं होगा. होगा क्या कि हमें आज सोचना है अपने जो हमारी नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी है 2020 की, कि हम आज अपने बच्चों को क्या पढ़ाने जा रहे हैं. और ये मैसेज में सारे एजुकेटर्स के लिए, सारे स्कूल लीडर्स के लिए या इंडस्ट्री लीडर्स के लिए, कि हम क्यों इंडस्ट्री 5.0 की आज बात करें, जो कि 5, 10, 15 साल आगे आने में अभी सीमलेस ट्रांजिशन होने में टाइम लगेगा. लेकिन अगर मैं आज अपने बच्चों को प्रिपेयर नहीं कर रही हूँ इस चीज के लिए, तो आगे आने वाले टाइम में उनको दिक्कतें होंगी उनकी साइकोलॉजी में, कि अच्छा सब आपके साथ कोई एक कोबॉट बैठा हुआ है सारा टाइम जो आपके ऑब्जर्व कर रहा है सब चीजों को. तो आप सोचिए कि आपको एवरी टाइम यू हैव समबडी ऑन योर हेड. So this is something going to happen, who might not understand your emotion, but slowly you may develop a relation like you do it with Alexa or you do it with Siri. So if you have seen, और अगर आप लोगों ने ऑब्जर्व किया होगा कि कभी कभी जो आपके इमोशनल आंसर्स होते हैं उनका आंसर आपको इन सब से नहीं मिलता है. So they get confused about it, because this is the algorithm, this is the data which we are talking about, and that's where, so human capability is beyond any data. And when we talk about 7 billion people right now here, जिनकी आप यूनिकनेस की बात करते हैं, तो वो यूनिकनेस ही है जो हम लोगों को आज यहाँ पर इकट्ठा बैठ के इस चीज को डिस्कस करने के लिए एक ऑप्शन दे रही है, एक अपॉर्चुनिटी दे रही है. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव टू ट्रेन ऑन द सॉफ्ट स्किल्स. सो आई एम वेरी श्योर that parents, educators, and leaders or industry leaders will understand this fact, that if we have to evolve, if we have to bring up to that level of matching up with this data, okay, that is what we are going to do. So we will start training them early. और इसमें सबसे ज़्यादा emotional intelligence, because that is where the challenges will lie. People are yet not ready कि आप अपने एक human being दूसरे human being से बात करने में अभी भी घबराता है. Well, if I talk about mental health, so people don't talk about it. But we would be, I think so, we would be more comfortable in talking with the machine, because machines can't think. So cognitive computing will happen, but cognitive function, cognitive flexibility is that we have to build up in the skills from primary early years to maybe till the working professionals, and that is what. So we can go backward right now. कि हम वर्किंग प्रोफेशनल्स के साथ स्टार्ट करें, एंड देन वी गो अहेड टू द अर्ली इयर्स, जब तक कि आगे के लिए हम तैयार होते हैं. दैट इज व्हाट आई बिलीव एज पर एज एजुकेशन 5.0. आई होप आई हैव बीन एबल टू मेक सम सेंस टू आवर ऑडियंस, एंड इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस रिलेटेड टू इट, प्लीज कीप पोरिंग योर क्वेश्चंस हियर. थैंक यू, विदुषी.
Thank you, Chetna ma'am. I think you have curated a complete path of starting from early education, schooling, to working professionals. So I think that journey is very, very important, and we have to see how to make that journey smooth. So I think we actually have a question from our audience. Rajiv Shukla ji is actually asking, do you think Industry 5.0 should be a part of the curriculum at our schools for our students to be well prepared for the future? And I think because we were discussing this, it's a good time to take this question. And I would actually like to start with Anand sir first, and drive from his experience in training and design thinking. How do we bring such a complex topic? जब हम इतनी सारी चीजों की बात कर रहे हैं, इतने complex keywords है, इतना सब कुछ सोचना है, तो उन सब चीजों को हम करिकुलम में कैसे लाएं?
गुड, धन्यवाद विदुषी. बहुत ही बढ़िया बात जो पूछी है शुक्ला जी ने. कि इंडस्ट्री 5.0 स्कूल में सिखाएं, कॉलेज में सिखाएं. आई थिंक हमें इंडस्ट्री 5.0 डायरेक्टली नहीं सिखाना है, लेकिन इंडस्ट्री 5.0 के लिए जो हमें अपने फ्यूचर जनरेशन में एटीट्यूड्स या उनके जो स्किल्स या उनकी जो थिंकिंग, जैसे कि सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है क्रिएटिविटी. I know in one of the seminar, somebody was sharing that when the student gets into the school at the first level, if his creativity is X, when he comes out of the college, his creativity becomes X by 10. So the entire schooling system, the entire college system, for whatever reasons, have been actually not promoting creativity. We have been trying to create actually robots in the schools. We want everybody to read the same subject. We want everybody to write the same answer. We want everybody to be evaluated the same way. So we are actually creating robots in the schools where we have to actually create humans. So robots we can create in the factory. So my answer to Mr. Rajiv Shukla is that you are absolutely right, that we have to relook at the entire curriculum and see that what exactly the competencies which we are building. And for Industry 5.0, as our fellow panelists have talked about, that we are talking of high touch, high impact. We are talking of where, as Chetna ji said, that psychology trumps technology. So technology has to be at your command. The technology should not command you. Now, for you to command the technology, you have to have some human competencies, and that is what should go into our curriculum. So, for example, when we say our mental strength, now if I'm not mentally strong, then technology can overpower me. I will not be able to co-work with my people. So things like, in fact, if I say that what are the things should be focused from my experience, as Vidushi you said, something which comes to my mind is for our generation and even the professionals, I feel attention management. Now, attention management is a very, very big problem. I'm not talking of time management. Everybody talks about time management, but attention management is a major problem. And how do we do that? So what is required here is something called a 2x2 matrix. We put our urgent and important onto this 2x2 matrix. Okay. And then you will find what urgent and important, not urgent but important, not urgent, not important, right? And not important but urgent. So these could be 4 quadrants. Now, typically, where do we operate? We operate on urgent and important. And majority of our time goes into urgent and important. But what we have to focus is a large chunk of effort has to go into not urgent, but important. So that we actually do the important work even before it becomes urgent. The worst situation is we actually spend time on activities which are neither important nor urgent, like watching a TV overnight, binge watching. They are neither urgent nor important, but we will put a lot of our time over there. Now, with the kind of opportunities and options and the bombardment of technology and bombardment of entertainment, bombardment of so many, it's a problem of plenty. Actually, if I go back in my early days, we had a scarcity problem. We did not have enough scooters. We did not have enough cars to buy. Right now, you have more cars than the buyer. So everywhere there are more picture halls looking for the people to come to their movie hall, right? So basically what I'm saying is now it's a problem of plenty. Now when there's a problem of plenty, actually you have to look at this attention management. So that is one thing which I don't know how it can be taught, but certainly attention management has to be taught. You know, that's the skill which has to come into the professional's mind or student's mind. The second one, as you talked about design thinking. So what we are saying is we need mindset which will be high impact and high touch, because machines will take care of a lot of things, but what humans have to do and what machines cannot do is how do I judge the high impact and high touch, and how that will come is by design skills, by storytelling skills which computer cannot tell, or by doing symphony. How do we bring ideas together? How do we create something new out of various options, or most important, empathy. The machines cannot have empathy. It is the human being who has to have the empathy. But do we people know? Is it being taught in our schools or colleges? So Shuklaji, this is where we need to focus. Play. How do we make work as a play? Because we have to playful. We have to do things as a play. And last but not the least, can I drive meaning? Can I drive meaning out of what I'm doing? See, it's not about money. I have to have meaning. Now the young generation today wants meaning, and that is where they want to drive their career with a purpose. And I would like to add one more point here before I request back to Vidushi, is what Praveenji talked about, that how do we take the experience of the customer to the next level, and the customer experience of the customer to be taken to the next level. It is the human only can understand that what is the intuitive to the customer. This intuitive, the intuition, the intuitive skills. Machines cannot actually think about how the customer is going to think about. And that is where the design thinking will come into practice of how do we really understand the people, because people are the customers. And with this empathy and compassion, how we are able to design the new products, the new services, which are going to be high impact and high touch. So I think these are from my experience, these are the skill sets which need to be developed. Of course, there can be many more, and I can probably go on, but I think looking at the respecting time which we have, and we would like to take other questions also. I was seeing there is another interesting question where some professors are talking about industry 6.0 and 7.0. Maybe if somebody, maybe Praveen wants to take, or you want me to comment, I may comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand sir. I do want to say that you've talked about attention management, and हमारी generation के लिए everything becomes urgent and important because procrastination. So इतनी procrastination के बाद it's a very important skill to develop. So thank you for reminding everybody about this. And Praveen sir, Anand sir ने design thinking, storytelling, and he connected it all back to customer experience also. So I just want to know, like, in your experience during the trainings with working professionals and companies, what are the challenges when you talk about these practices, and especially, building soft skills like empathy and driving it with values and culture? So over to you, Praveen sir.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this discussion, and I think Chetna and Anandji already covered it, but I just want to take it like a bit further. So frankly speaking, your current employment is not that important these days. Employability is the key, for future. And we also must, I think, make a commitment to ourselves to become a lifelong learner and constantly evolve our skill in the respective field. It's not that, what schools are teaching. We have to teach. I think we all have like, I think mindset that we can learn anything, right? So we should not rely, we don't have training and we don't have, certification in any field. But we should constantly evolve our skill set in all of our respective fields. And some of the key skills which are like, which will be really needed for Industry 5.0 for, So of course, lean agile thinking, growth mindset. We already had I think, webinar earlier on this topic. And some of the technology skill like artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning. And of course, with all that, explosion of data will happen. And there are a lot of jobs in the future for data analytics, data science in those fields. And coming back to the customer, customer centricity and design thinking, those are two main topics, And in order to achieve these topics, we need a lot of folks who can basically create different personas and empathy maps, how customer will perceive a product and how they can customize the product for different set of customers. So there are a lot of tools available in the market, and we do take actually training on this, design thinking and customer centricity and how to create different persona and empathy maps. And those skills will be, I think, in a lot of demand in the coming years. And I think just to extend the question, what to teach in school and colleges. I think this is much beyond school and colleges. Our whole education system will evolve, and we all have to become lifelong learner. It is not that, just imagine, you graduated from school and you didn't learn about Industry 5.0. It doesn't mean that you cannot work in Industry 5.0. So, and Industry 5.0, there will be like future, after like 10-15 years, there will be Industry 6 or 7. So we have to keep evolving, and we have to come in the rhythm of like lifelong learning. So back to you, Vidushi.
Thank you, Praveen sir. I think lifelong learning and adaptability are the core skills we definitely have to focus on. And coming to you, Chetna ma'am, I just want to bring you in here to see that when we talk about lifelong learning and agile thinking and design thinking and customer centricity, there are so many processes and concepts that we need to learn to constantly evolve and learn about. So where do we start and how do we start?
Okay, you start today, the moment itself when you are listening to all of us. And we have already started. I believe, I mean, it's not that you have to, it's like a twitch, like, okay, you have to do it now. It is already happening. It is slowly. So I'll give you a very simple example here. कि जब हमने इंटरनेट यूज करना शुरू किया था या हमने कोई भी ऐसा टेक्नोलॉजी फेसबुक यूज करना किया था तो लोगों के अंदर थोड़ा सा हिच था आई मीन पीपल वर लिटिल नॉट वेरी कंफर्टेबल विद इट कि अच्छा अब हमें ये करना चाहिए नहीं करना चाहिए उसके प्रोज एंड कॉन्स सो व्हाट आई थिंक नाउ वी ऑल हैव टू थिंक अबाउट इज मेजरली दिस पर्टिकुलर स्किल सेट कि पीपल मैनेजमेंट एज आनंद जी स्पोक अबाउट कि पीपल मैनेजमेंट कैसे करना है दूसरों के साथ कोऑर्डिनेट कैसे करना है तो आज जब हम 2020 की बात कर रहे थे तो उसमें क्या हुआ कि हम यहाँ पर बैठ के मैं इंडिया में बैठ के किसी से यूएस में आज एक कोलैबोरेशन कर सकती हूँ कि मुझे अच्छा किसी से कुछ भी हेल्प चाहिए या किसी तरह का प्रोडक्ट या सर्विसेज चाहिए तो लोगों को थोड़ा सा आगे का सोचना होगा मतलब इट हैज टू बी अ वेरी फॉरवर्ड थिंकिंग रादर देन थिंकिंग और गेटिंग फियर्ड अप बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग कि अच्छा ये ऐसा क्यों होगा या हमें क्या करना ऑफ कोर्स वी हैव बीन आई मीन स्पेशली जनरेशन ऑफ आवर्स और योर्स इज बेसिकली लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्नर so we have adapted to that we have actually quickly moved with the agility that okay this is what we need to do so teachers have done that people have done that who are working so now and people have understood कि अब उनको traffic में फंसने की जरूरत नहीं है and that is what is going to happen so when somebody is asking this question that futuristic vision क्या होगा so जब आप sci-fi movies देखते हैं you look at that okay that it will be the completely robotic thing but it will not happen at any point of time बिकॉज आज भी अगर आप एक एयरप्लेन की बात करते हैं तो जब हम ऑटो पायलट पे चलता है दैट इज द ईज ऑफ फंक्शनिंग विच इज बीइंग गिवन टू अस बट अल्टीमेटली व्हेन इट इज अ टाइम ऑफ क्राइसिस इट्स द पायलट हु टेक्स केयर ऑफ इट it's the pilot who has saved us all the time if I take up examples and similarly now when we shifted from 2G to 3G or 4G and now we are talking about 5G there will be challenges there will be people will be little apprehensive about it but I think this will keep on going with the right set of skills right mindset and that is what if you are sitting in a cocoon and thinking of that okay I am a CEO of a company today and I have this much of turnover it works for me it is not going to happen similarly if you are a school leader and if you are thinking that okay I have this number of students in my this thing and I have been running this curriculum for long तो ये चलता रहेगा ऐसा नहीं होगा क्योंकि आज का बच्चा जो है युवा जो है वो हमसे बहुत आगे जा रहा है so if I talk about technology understanding it so they are faster I mean in any sense for that matter whether it is their agility whether it is their adaptability also they will do it so they are doing it already so that is what I think we have to think in that forward manner so people management skill is very important coordinating is very very important for people to think and there's nothing to be fear about that's what I feel I mean it is going to be a very easy smooth transition जब हमने COVID को निकाल लिया है तो हम आगे भी इस चीज को निकाल लेंगे दैट इज व्हाट आई फील एंड ह्यूमन कैपेबिलिटी इज बियॉन्ड एनी मशीन फॉर दैट मैटर आई मीन वी हैव नॉट understood us well so self awareness is the first thing which we have to do before empathy and compassion that's what I will put before कि जितना हम अपने आप को समझने की कोशिश करेंगे जब हम साइकोलॉजी और मशीन की बात करते हैं तो मशीन कैसे सोच सकती है मशीन के अंदर एल्गोरिथम डालने वाला जो है वो एक इंसान है So what I am putting there is my thought. What I'm putting there is my way of thinking. So if I think creatively, if I think critically, so then only I'll be able to put into the machine in any which way. And data is as much as it's kind of a mathematics, the way you handle. So it's a boon or a bane, both. That's what I will say, Vidushi. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheta ma'am. I think you've covered it beautifully. कि इंडस्ट्री 5.0 से किसी को भी डरने की जरूरत नहीं है, because algorithm डालने वाला ही एक ह्यूमन है, तो ह्यूमन कैपेबिलिटीज को ही टैप करने की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे. एंड जैसे कि आपने बोला कि युवा बहुत आगे की सोचता है, वैसे ही हमारे को एक ऑडियंस मेंबर ने ज्वाइन किया है जिनका नाम श्रद्धा है, और वो ये क्वेश्चन पूछ रही है कि शी इज फ्रॉम Delhi Technological University and she says that our professors talk about industry 5.0 and sometimes take us to industry 6.0 and 7.0. So what is beyond 5.0? Anand ji, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I would like to thank Shraddha that she is under a professor who is actually futuristic. So she is in the safe hands. But if you say what will come in 6.0 or 7.0, except that there will be 6.0 and 7.0, I can't say more than that. Because the point I would like to say here is, and this versioning system, and I'm excited to say that where from this versioning system came, that came from software. Before the software industry, this version part was not there. And how the versioning happens, maybe that can answer a bit to Shraddha, how the versioning happens in a software. So if I release a version 1.0, when there are minor releases, I say 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. But when there's a major release, when there's a major change, when there is something for which I have to change the ecosystem, I have to change the user, I have to train the users, I have to change a perspective, I have to transform the model. That is where I decided to do it as a new version. So as the innovation happens, as the quest for the newer things happen by the human being, I know the technology innovation will happen. The minor innovations will still get included into I.O, but when there will be a major innovation, when there will be a completely out of the box thing or an out of the box technology or out of the box way of working will come, probably that will get classified as 6.0. So today, yes, there can be a 6.0, but it's a box where the black box. I can't explain what will be inside that box, but yes, visualizing that there's a box called Industry 6.0 and Industry 7.0, I would again say, Shraddha, you are in the safe hands of a professor who is at least talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we should bring the professor on our next panel discussion to discuss his futuristic vision. I think it's very important. Praveen sir, there's another question from our audience member, Nisar, who's asking that in my company, we're working with robots already. So does that mean that we've already implemented Industry 5.0 before Industry 4.0? And I'll just add to that, as an agile coach, you've been working with so many companies in US. So how do you think that the employers and the employees equations, or how they will connect with the presence of collaborative robots? So like I can imagine there's robots, there are people,
Yeah.
how are they working together in a team? Over to you, sir.
So you're working, if you're, just to first answer the question, if you're working with a robot, that doesn't mean you are in Industry 5.0. We are talking about intelligent robots who can work and do collaboration with the humans. So I think that is Industry 5.0, not just, because we've been working with robots, as Anandji mentioned, for last, 20, 30, 40 years, in different capacity. So as you can imagine, learning and collaboration are tasks that comes like natural to us humans, But for robots, some human needs to design the correct algorithm and evolve robots' behavior over time. And a lot of work is happening to come up with the dynamic performance indicators to gauge the ever-evolving behavior of cobots, collaborative robots. And I think it's already happening. Cobots has shown some great promise to bring potentially complex tasks in frequently changing settings, especially around automation and reinforcement learning for the local control policies has proven to be very, very promising methods so far. And in the future workplace, cobots will work very intelligently with the humans in the same workplace at the same time, and trust and reliability between those two parties will achieve promising efficiency, flawless production, and minimum waste, and of course customizable manufacturing. And in doing so, it will bring more people back to the workplace, and I think overall efficiency of the processes and efficiency of the society will evolve. But you need to realize that end of the day, it's all about efficiency and how companies is providing value to the customer, and either in the form of a product or in the form of a service. So one thing is for sure, humans are not going anywhere, and companies have no choice but to evolve and become hub for continuous learning culture, and they have to give very, very high emphasis on organizational agility and continuous innovation and relentless improvement. And I think today, majority of the companies, especially in India, they are in a command and control structure. But I think all the leadership will evolve to servant leadership, in a very short time. That's my prediction. Back to you, Vidushi.
Thank you, Praveen sir. I think definitely a lot of companies and individuals, like being at Coursera, I can say that a lot of companies and individuals are moving to a continuous learning culture, and they're taking up courses to, digitally transform themselves, and also in soft skills. So I think it is very, very important. And here I would like to bring in Chetna ma'am also. Do you think you spoke about COVID and how, COVID has sort of accelerated the move to people who were a little apprehensive of, even using their phones to doing video calls on Zoom and handling their businesses and job responsibilities over Zoom and Google Meet. So do you think that it has actually helped us in achieving this digital transformation? And what are the career trends that you see in the future?
Okay. Thank you, Vidushi. That's again a very nice question. So I'll take up one bit first. That yes, it will. Anytime it is the adversity or it is something which when it's the drive or the motivation. I mean, the willingness to learn that brings us to move ahead or jump ahead into something. So that is what, and something what has happened during this pandemic is, or this is, we call it adversity, and that is where we have to learn about the adversity skills, that how quickly you are going to adapt to a new situation. Machines can't do that, human beings can do that, that is for sure. And that is why we talk about all the time that what will be the future skill set. More than careers, I would emphasize here on the future skill set which would be required, because if you have the skill set, you will definitely be into different careers, which could be, so there won't be any CEOs anymore, there would be CROs. Okay, so those are chief robot officers, and people will be required in the management analysis of it. So it's a higher value job which will be created. So all redundant work of maybe which is data mining, data filling, that can be done by the machines at any point of time, which is already being done. The only thing which would be the manipulations, the maneuvering which is required, which requires human beings here. And this is the skill set which all of us would require. So either we do it with the because adversity happened, or because we are willing to learn and the change situation changes for all of us. So that is what will happen. And one thing which I would like, so people have to start thinking. So what is the future thinking? Because we are talking about the future path. So they have to think about the industrial revolution 5.0 economy. So how it is going to evolve. That is one thing which people have to think about, that what is the future way forward with the industries. If suppose this happens, so where are they going to place these people around, and how early they are training them? That is one thing. Then of course policies which we have to bring in, and India definitely, I agree with Mr. Anand about it, that maybe we are at 2.5 and 3.5, so we do not have the data and policies on the cyber safety, which is where we have to start thinking as leaders, that okay, this is how. So even if I'll just give a very simple example, how does this happen, how are you going to make this transition here? It's as simple as that. If suppose I'm using a picture from picking up from Google, am I as a student, or am I as an educator, or as I am a parent, am I telling my child to give the credit to that person? That, okay, this is I have picked up, or the references. So this is as simple as that. That's how we start with the skill set. So it's not a big, there is no curriculum written about it. It's through the people, and that is where we will play the roles as human leaders, that we are going to bring the change together. That is what I feel about. So attitude has to change, the mindset has to change. That is what the future would be, and Industry 5.0 is all about. So psychology would play definitely a major role when you talk about this. Just last thought here, that how psychology. So people have already spoken about behavioral economics, that how the consumer think. People have already thinking about the health insurance sector, how it has evolved because of you play with the psychology of people on that okay, this is what going to happen. So, and that's where it would be. So behavioral science is going to be the future. And then when it combines with the computing technology, so it's called computer linguistic, which is going to come up in a big way. So whatever is available to us will be translated into different local languages. People can do that. That is what. So management analysis, data analytics, and of course the CROs, the robotic people, those who can handle that. So you don't have to just start with the coding. You have to start how to manage things. I mean, don't start training your child early with the coding this thing. No, and not don't. I don't think so. And I think Anandji and Praveen will also agree here that not coding is not required for that purpose. It is just the thinking of you understand the technology, the back end thing which is happening to it, the know-how of it, and then you are good to go with any kind of a position or the careers. And so look for the skill set. That's what I would advise to those who are listening here, or maybe they'll watch this later. So that is what from my side. Thank you, Vidushi.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope our audience was taking notes, because those are a lot of checklist points that we have to take care of while we're talking about skill sets. And we've talked about a lot of skills also. So I think going back to the point that you made, Chetna ma'am, about changing mindsets, about policies, about looking at, behavioral frameworks. So when we talk about such systems and going back to, our companies and an industry perspective, uh, finally our generation and now everybody's talking about policies, and everybody's becoming more and more aware of, say, how a Facebook works or how a WhatsApp chat is being tracked, and things about data privacy and ethical data and data governance. So all of these components are finally becoming very, very important for companies to consider. So bringing you here, Anandji, what do you think, how do these industries gear up for the cybersecurity and policies and the perspective from the economy?
Yeah, thanks, Vidushi. Before that, let me just reiterate, there is a question here from Neha talking of how soon do you see Industry 5.0 in India. I think in my earlier conversation, I did cover that it is not that somebody has to switch on and off and move from 4.0 to 5.0. There are some early adopters, there are early innovators who are already using some of these concepts and technology we are talking about here. So it's already here. It's already there in the implementation stage. Now to your question on the cyber security, data privacy. So as we all have heard this statement that data is the new oil. So we know that as oil was determining the economy in the 20th century, the entire economy of 21st century is based on data. That's why data is the new oil. Now, if it is the new oil, if it is going to determine the economy, then obviously this is the most important asset which we have to take care. And the most important in movement, right? You send some cash in a van and it goes from place A to place B. So it has a possibility of being theft. Somebody will take the cash, right? So similarly, when the data is moving in our network, and the data is moving from user to server, from server to customer, what is happening? This data is in action. The data is in movement. Now, whenever the data is in movement, it is prone to theft, prone to mixing, prone to falling in the hands which are not safe. So what we call as CIA, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So whatever is the data, whether it is available to only those people at the time when it should be available, whether it is integrity, that means it is the pure data, nobody has mixed it up, or somebody has done some falsification of the data. So all those aspects primarily get covered into the cybersecurity. So the cybersecurity can be handled with the help of technology tools, but again, in the limited time, I would like to say the key factor in the cybersecurity ultimately is again the human being, because the no threat or no problem happens unless there is a human being behind the technology who has some bad intentions. So that is about the cybersecurity. Then coming to privacy. Now, if data is the new oil, if data is going to determine the economy, then we have to clearly articulate who has the rights. If I am generating my data, then how much do I allow my customer or my supplier or my whosoever with whom I am interacting? What does he or she does with my data? It has to be my responsibility. It has to be my fundamental right. So that is where, as Chetna ji mentioned, that the world over, the governments are talking about, thinking about, and there are some policies and guidelines and some regulations are already out in terms of Privacy Information Management System (PIMS), and there are GDPR in the European area. So, but still, they are not the final ones, and they have the loopholes. And also, the issue becomes that when I give control to somebody, then how much is the control on that controller itself? So will he not become sort of a dictator, and he will use my data? And as you mentioned in your discussion, that a lot of WhatsApps are flowing in about the new policy which has been published by WhatsApp up to 8th February. Now, but one thing good I think I see in that is that so far we all have been blindly ticking the box and accepting all the terms and conditions, whatever were being told by our application provider, only in the guise of that since it is free, then I tick box everything, yes, 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 yes. So the good part is now there is an awareness. Now there is a compulsion on the supplier side, and there's an awareness on the user side that these things are coming in the open, and once they are coming in the open, and people will take a thought out decision, well thought out decision. I'm sure we are going to come to a situation where there will be a balance of the flexibility as well as control, and the privacy of the data will be safeguarded, and that is where the entire economy, as Chetna ji mentioned, see, because the government regulations and government policies can make an overnight impact on the future of a company. Like the simple thing, if I implement a privacy policy, and if government of India says that none of the Indians' data can go outside India, that means they have to create so many servers in India where the data has to be kept within Indian boundaries. So there are hundreds of ramifications. Or if a company like Facebook or Google, or for that matter any company, if they misuse the consumer's data, then the lawsuits which can go against them could be in many large high quantity of money, and which can actually impact their bottom line. So I think this is a very, very complex and interrelated issue, but I'm sure because the appreciation is happening at all levels, be it at the consumer level, be it at the company level, be it at the government level, or be it at the non-government level. And why I'm emphasizing on the non-government level is that, in my personal opinion, I think we need to create new NGOs which actually should create awareness on this data privacy, should create awareness on the cyber security, so that our not people who are not so conversant with the latest technology, as Chetna ji mentioned, that the Toffler's statement that uneducated is not the one who does not know how to read and write, but somebody who can learn, unlearn. And I would say that in the digital planet, if you are not aware, if you are not technology aware, then you are actually uneducated. because whatever you will earn by education, the whole money can be wiped off if you are not safeguarding, your technology. So I think they are all interrelated, and for having the better economy and for having a satisfied customer and safe customer, and I think to take care of the interests of the consumer, both the privacy and the information security are very, very relevant. Thank you. Hope I have covered what you wanted.
Definitely, Anand sir. Thank you. I think essentially what I want to take from your answer, Anand ji, is about awareness and how we are creating this awareness starting with Industry 5.0 to how companies will evolve and how we're tapping human capabilities. So to sum up our discussion, I think my biggest takeaway has been a question instead that am I tapping all my skill sets and am I evolving in my job role? And just for our audience, if we could start with Praveen sir, how do you want people and our audience to understand this discussion, and what is the biggest takeaway according to you, sir?
Sure. So in my opinion, the progress of the industry 5.0 is unavoidable, And see, once you are used to a technology to make process more efficient, there is no point reverting back to the old ways of doing things, right? So given the efficiencies that can be gained by industry 5.0, I think as a society, as an industry, and as a world, we are already well past the point of going back. This kind of intelligent robotic automation is now inevitable. And currently, United States and China are taking the lead in these advanced technologies, but soon it will catch up with the rest of the world, in coming years. And Industry 5.0 headway, cannot be stalled, but there are still, some essential questions and ramifications, that must be addressed by manufacturers as well as the policymaker. As you can imagine, sometimes excessive automation and highly integrated systems are vulnerable to systemic risk, such as like total network collapse, or sometimes extreme connectivity creates some social issues and political structures also. So if left unchecked, they might lead to social unrest and a lot of other issues. So let's see how the world evolves around these advancements. But I think lifelong learning is the key message here. So thank you, Vidushi.
Thank you, Praveen sir, taking this spirit of lifelong learning forward. Chetna ma'am, how do you think skills reform comes into play here? How do we take this learning forward, and what's the most essential component of this discussion according to you?
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Vidusha. I'll sum up in a very humanistic manner. I'll try to do that as because I believe in completely humanistic way of living and learning. So the few things which I think the people have to think is the three A's, which we have already each one of us have mentioned, which is adversity, adaptability, and agility. That we should look for that essence in us, and above that would be the innovation. When I'm talking about innovation, so look at the world. Just try to imagine a world where even a disabled person, where is a person who's blind or who's not capable enough as per the levels of which his industry requires, and he has a helpful cohort with him or her and sitting beside. So look at the opportunity, the employment opportunities for those kind of people. If we can bring them into the workforce, kind of a marriage of man and machine, look at the reproduction which will happen beautifully, and the kind of products which we will have, because I feel that somewhere we are not able to tap that talent also. So that is how I look as a psychologist, that how we can go about it. That is one thing. Then of course the upskill and coming in terms with machine. So be ready for doing that. That okay, if a machine is sitting beside you, listening to you, understanding your cognition, how you are thinking, what you are thinking, and responding to you would be the fun way of living with them. So coexistence with them, that is one thing which will happen. And yes, of course, for the government, it has to be the top-down approach. It has to start with the policy, the leaders, the social leaders, as Anandji said, that for the NGOs or the think tanks, which they have to do that. And of course, keep upskilling yourself. That is what I would say with this discussion. So looking forward to a beautiful world where the man and machine merges together. Thank you.
Fingers crossed. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Coming to Anandji, I know that in your professional experience, you have been upskilling and learning so many different things to adapt and learn so much and evolve continuously. So, what do you think our demographic should do, and where are we heading towards?
Thanks, Vidushi. I think as a concluding remark, what I think is, see, look at the business performance of an organization. It is driven by three aspects: the people, process, and technology. Now, and this together makes the culture of an organization. So eventually, it is the culture of an organization which is directly drives the business performance or the sustenance or the success of an organization. Now, out of the three, the people, process, and technology, with the Industry 4.0, your processes and technology is almost getting democratized. It has access to everyone. I can go and have investment. I can have automated processes. I can have any kind of technology which I want. But what is going to be the differentiator for creating this culture is the people. And as we all talked about the people, the high impact and high touch. So I think the people have to really again become the human beings. So from human becoming, I think we have to become the human beings, and all that is required to we become the human beings again is, in my opinion, it should be the charter. And if we all develop our people becoming the human beings, then they will be able to deliver all that what we talked about, that the man and machine will collaborate together. Men, that is the human beings, will bring differentiated value, not what machines are bringing. So it is not a competition, it is not a conflict, it is all about coexistence, it is all about complementing, it is all about the people managing the technology and not letting the technology manage the people. So, and finally, I think we have to all be ready to manage the change and not let the change manage us. That is where somebody said that should we get ready, should we prepare? Yes, we have to get ready, we have to prepare, because if we don't change, the change will manage us. So it is in our interest that we make ourselves, as Praveenji said, that lifelong learner. And the point I can say is, from my experience of 35 plus years, what I learned in my school days, what I learned in my college at IIT Roorkee from 79 to 83, I think none of that is any adding value today. What I have learned over the 35 years, I think every 5 years it is completely transforming to a new area, and that is where I think I give credit to, that where I am today, I am able to talk to a person like Vidushi. I think that is because we have probably kept ourselves up to date. Otherwise, probably we would not have been on this particular platform. So it is all result of continuous learning. So that is, I think, again, I second what Praveen said, and developing, as Chetnaji said, developing the core values of human being, those basic core values which we have somewhere lost in the race of technology. So again, I like that quote from Chetnaji, that psychology will trump, because anyway, Trump is anyway a problem. So psychology is anyway going to trump the technology. So with that, I would conclude my statement. Thanks so much. It is wonderful.
Thank you, Anand sir. I have to say that today, being a part of this discussion, I have definitely learned a lot. And I actually want to request the audience to, in the spirit of collaboration and lifelong learning, as Praveen sir and everybody else, in the discussion has said, let's pour in our learnings from the discussion today in the comment section, and let's continue to engage, because until we engage and collaborate, there's no Industry 5.0 happening. So thank you everyone for taking out the time and being a part of this discussion. Thank you to Skills Reform for giving us this platform in the first place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chetna ji. Thank you, Praveen ji, and wonderful job, Vidushi. Thanks a lot. There the collaboration continues. Thank you.